All right, so here we are. Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. We have the pleasure of speaking with Filipe Machaz. He's going to answer all your questions today. So, hey, Philip, how are you doing? How are you
I'll
doing?
try my best. I'll try my best.
Excellent. Yeah. So, please, everybody, throw all your hard questions at him. I've set up the system so everything is private. So, it's you're not going to have to worry about asking a dumb question or anything like that. you know, a lot of times those really simple questions can lead to discoveries. So I really encourage everyone, just hammer away. We appreciate that. Um, Let me introduce Philip for those of you who haven't heard him speak before. He's a third generation hotelier, and his grandfather owned hotels, big, beautiful hotels in Portugal. And he got into the lodging industry on the digital marketing side when his father was opening a new hotel and said, "Hey, what can you do to help me?" He has a master's in computer science, and since that, he's put that talent to work. He's established GuestCentric, and I guess it's been 10 years now. They've won
11 years.
how many?
Actually, 11 years after tomorrow.
11 years after tomorrow, and you have about 150 awards to show for it. So I think that's really, really great. And let me just kick off the Q&A session with one of my own. So when you were helping your father uh, kind of wrestle with the OTAs, take back share from the OTAs, what's the main problem that you saw with him? And also, what's the main problem that you see nowadays with most hotels? Okay, I'm gonna
Okay.
pop off over here and take it away, Phil.
Thank you, Jeremiah, and I'll try to address that first question. And I think it's an extremely important one because I see this every day. So there's a big gap between technology and so between the hotels and the guests in terms of technology, and obviously that creates a lot of challenges for the hotels. Hotels are traditionally not into technology; they are into service. That's why they are in the hospitality industry. And suddenly we are living in this digital world that suddenly you need to do e-commerce and everything is changing. So obviously all the technology, all these technology changes, right? The change in paradigms um, created a huge gap between the hotel and the guest, and that's the reason, and this is obviously my opinion, why the OTAs took advantage and they are basically controlling this industry. And that's the challenge that we are here to solve, and that I'm here to help you. I don't know if that answered that question, Jeremiah. Um, so so I just had an yes here. So thank you, Jeremiah. So let's wait for the first question. I'll wait I don't know, a couple of seconds if if there's no questions, I'll come up with mine. But actually, there's a question now. Okay, so what so what's the real problem? Okay, so like obviously looking into a smaller problem um, helps us identify what's the best route to solve a problem. So I learned this in computer science. It's called divide and conquer, and I think the big problem that I see every day, and I see a lot of people asking about, okay, where should I start, or I've seen this great technology, should I implement it? And I always say, actually, before you implement any technology or before you go and do a major change, just go back to the basics, right? And look at basic things. And I actually created a small list here of basic things that always look. And I'll start with the branding, right? So branding is super important. So you are branding, it's who you are, right? So it's for a digital strategy, it's super important that you have a good website, that it's up to today's standards. So like a bad logo would have a bad influence in your conversion ratio. That's kind of like a good example. And I see that all the time. Like I have clients calling me, oh, I want to do the best website in the world, but then I look at the logo and say, hey, sorry, you first need to work at your logo or at your brand side. So I think that's a good one. Also, I also look at the technology, and also the I see again a lot of people trying to implement the new gadget in the industry related with the hotel direct bookings. But then I look at their websites, and then I look at their technology, and the website, it's not optimized for mobile. It doesn't work in mobile. It's an example, or maybe it's an extreme example, but it's an example that I could literally go and check and find one website that on mobile doesn't work, or it's slow. So in a way, you are investing in a technology where you are trying to push people into a funnel that's broken, right? So I think that's one of the basic situations, or the basics that you need to fix before you look at your strategy. It's also interesting, and obviously again this is my opinion. It's I see a lot of hotels using and adding this technology, and what they are doing, they are fueling the OTAs. Because if, let's say, oh, I'm doing retargeting, or I'm using, I don't know, one of these direct booking technologies to push people into my website, and suddenly they go into the direct booking or into the booking engine, and the booking engine doesn't work, they'll say, oh, this is a great hotel, but the booking engine doesn't work. Oh, I'm going to Expedia and I'll book through Expedia. And I think that's obviously a problem. So I have a question here also. Can you tell us a story of hotels that have done more with less? I'm really a simplistic person, so I think this is part of one of my recommendations to hotels. I see hotels spending a ton of money in different fronts, and a good example is, for instance, AdWords. Should you do AdWords, so adding complexity when your website it's not up to the standards? I think no, right? Because you will end up losing them in the funnel, and you are paying for that traffic. So I've seen that example, and I think that's a good example. I recommended directly customers, hey, stop spending money on AdWords before you fix your funnel, before you fix your website. I think hopefully I answered that question, but I think that's a typical one that I see. Not every day, but every week I see hotels, and they ask me, oh, should I invest in retargeting AdWords? Or I've seen another tool. They're like, okay, fix the basics. Let's fix first the basics, so we can control the main variables, and then we can actually try to understand what can we do better to have more direct bookings. I have another one here. How can hotels tailor their messaging to their markets? Okay, and obviously this is kind of like an open question, but I think the first thing that you need to know is you need to learn about guests, about your guests. You need to learn not only the guests that show up at your hotel, but obviously the guests that visit your website, the visitors. There's a lot of technologies that we could use, especially Google Analytics. We've done some Google Analytics webinars in the past, so I'll put them in the webinar notes. Google Tag Managers. So there's a ton of little things that will help you understand your guests. So how long do they take? What are the pages that are most visited? Where are guests booking from? How long do they stay at your page? Where they are coming from? So are they coming from Canada? They are coming from Russia? Are they coming from China? Are they coming from Japan? I have a great story to tell regarding this question. We have an hotel in Hawaii that they were using just plain English booking engine, and they had a lot of Japanese customers and guests at their website. And obviously we could see that on Google Analytics. So we partner with a company that provides specific booking engines in Japanese, and they added the Japanese booking engine, totally Japanese friendly, completely designed for the Japanese mindset. And we actually doubled, if not more, the direct bookings. And I think that's a great story to tell. Okay, you need to adapt. Obviously, the Hawaii, it's an extreme, right? Because it's like one of the major Western destinations for Asian or for Japanese travelers. But you can get some examples like that. Let's wait for another question. I don't know. Hopefully, I answered that one. Let me wait a few seconds before I get another question, but just to talk about the Google Analytics. Now they are adding a little bit more technology, so you can even learn about the age of the visitor to the website. So if they are young, you should change the message to be more focused on a young public. If they are older, do you understand? So based on the data that that Google Analytics, the avid travelers, they are wine lovers. Actually, it's interesting. You can check and you can learn more about that if you log into Google Analytics. I have another question here. What other advantages can hotel gain over their comp sets? I think this is really important to learn about the last resource, right? So before giving away my price, I need to see if I can. Actually, two examples from this client. One, so he started to learn a little bit more about his guests, and so he started to see that a lot of his guests had pets, dogs, and so he decided to so he built specific offers just for dogs, and that's something that OTAs don't do, or it's not very clear. So he created a page dedicated for dogs, created some specific offers at the booking engine level for dogs, and I think that gives you not only a competitive advantage, but you are tapping into a specific market that normally OTAs don't tap, and I think that's really interesting. The same, they have done also something in terms of so they've seen that they had a ton of visits to their website of people who wanted a wedding, whatever place. So they created kind of some buzz around it, and they increased by 15 times the amount of wedding requests. So it was kind of like a big victory on their side. So I think that's also an interesting one. I have a couple of ones here. Can we provide partners with hotels to create unique package? Oh, that's a great question, and I think I've done a couple of webinars that were dedicated on this. So that's really something that I believe it should be part of the core of an e-commerce strategy, and where you could actually create specific offers for specific partners. Okay, so let's call it an affiliate program. I don't know, call it, we can call it different names. I even call it kind of like you can build your own OTAs. You understand? So you just select a couple of activity providers, and you can negotiate with them some specific rates, some specific offers, and you just plug those offers, or you create that booking engine to put to place in their website, in their social media. So there's a ton. So I think that's a full topic of another webinar. That would, obviously I could go in that direction if you need. There's another question here. Do you recommend flash sales? And I think it really depends. You need to look at if you don't prepare well. I think flash, like last minute sales, are great. Sometimes I see hotels doing this at the website level, at the OTA level, not at the website level. So I think that's a big mistake. So before you kind of give, I don't know, 15-20% to an OTA, you should try to do it at your website. Like there's a ton of tools that hotels do. Even Booking.com, they have tools, and Expedia to do this. I see hotels just investing on them, and they don't do it at the website. I have another question here. What kind of things should hotels be thinking of in the shoulder season? I think that's kind of like a tough question. Means I think when you start nailing down the basics, right? Learning about your guests, learning about your competition. Do you understand? I think those specific seasons where you have challenges, so you would start seeing them in a much clearer way. Okay, and I think the best thing to do is that you need to create specific offers that and try to tap into specific niches. I don't know if I answered that. It's a kind of a tough question because it depends from hotel to hotel. But I think if you do good partnerships, good affiliate programs, if you know your guests, and if you create value in your product, eventually you will minimize the impact of shoulder season. And I think that's. I don't know if I answered that question. Hopefully, I did. So I have another one. Okay, how should hotels review their own setup? Example: Genius rates, etc. I see this all the time, and I have clients calling me and say, "Hey, how it's possible? I just sign up for very often, most of the cases, I see that hotels are enabling specific features on the OTAs that they don't have at their website, so they end up with better prices. And a good example is the Genius rate. So the Genius rate, it's just a checkbox that you sign. I'm not even sure if it's on the extranet, on Booking.com extranet, but it's on their contract. I'm sure it's on their contract, and you sign, or you say, yes, I want to sign up for the Genius rate, and suddenly you open you give 10% of your rates to Genius customers. And as we've seen in the past, to be a Genius customer, you don't even need to, they claim that you need to book X number of bookings through Booking.com, but I've seen that you can get a Genius privileges without any single booking. So suddenly you are giving away 10% of your revenue just because you are signing up for Genius. And I think that's critical to make sure the OTAs are correctly set up, so you don't get differences in prices. You understand? And then it's interesting because you see people doing the Genius, and then they do triptease. It's kind of like very messy, and I think that's kind of like, okay, let's go back to the basics and make sure I have a direct like a parity strategy well defined. In terms of the OTAs, it's often I often see sometimes the clients call me, hey, we don't have good images, blah blah blah, for our website, and we complain. Okay, you need good images in order for you to have direct bookings. And then we go to to Booking.com, and they have great images, and I think that's kind of like very, very annoying. And I have a customer in Cape Cod, and they have better images on Booking.com. So obviously, I'm not going there to change because they don't pay us to do that. But I always complain, come on, guys, just make sure you have good images at your website, so you can tell better. You can better tell your story. So what's the easiest? I have another question here. What's the easiest direct booking strategy? Any stories? I think the easiest, it's if you level the playing field, and if you give the same, if you make sure the OTAs are not, they don't have better rates and better offers, and you give something back at the website to people who book direct. I think that's the easiest one to implement. Obviously, you need a booking engine that's easy, but I think that's an easy one to implement, and it's I think it's very quick to see the results, because the volume of people search a lot. So you see. I think the last numbers that I've seen, it's like between 18 to 22 visits before they actually book an hotel website. So eventually they'll go to your website. So if you can show at your hotel website that if you see the amount of money that you're paying to the OTAs, you can buy literally a bottle of wine and a basket of fruit and put in each room that you get a direct booking. And I think that's an easy one to implement. In Europe, doesn't enforce rate parity. How has that affected the industry there? I think this is a very good question, and it's interesting that I think hotels are still afraid from the OTAs because they get so much money from the OTAs that they are afraid to be, even though the law tells you that you can just have a better rate at your website. People don't do it a lot. So now we are convincing hotels to do like, okay, let's put $5 better. And I see a lot of customers, they do here the same. But if you have a big hotel in like a big city center, it's tough because the Booking.com and Expedia, they are always going to tap and look at your rates. But if your hotel, it's remote and it's not like it's a smaller hotel, I think you can get away with rate parity. Here in the US, you can also, if you change the rules of the game, so if you do a different cancellation policy, you can actually have better rates. So you can argue with them, and eventually they will let you go. So you can also do that. I think the effect of the rate parity didn't change a lot because hotels are still very independent, and these are super powerful companies, right? So it was not a huge change. Obviously, there's some hotels where they feel a little bit more, they feel the freedom, so they change and they do a little bit of that. I have another one here. You've said that some of your clients are thinking about turning off Booking.com in some seasons. I think successful customers who are kind of like gaining more and more in terms of direct bookings. And we have, I have very good examples with 50-60% of direct bookings in places where you know that they are going to be packed. They can actually control Booking.com, or control if the OTAs are open or closed, and we are recommending them to do. But again, they are a little bit afraid to do that. So we haven't convinced. We are trying to convince them, but they are still reluctant on like, okay, I'm not going to close one of my profitable channels because maybe it will create some issues. Do you understand? So I think it's a little bit like the same problem as a parity rate, but we are getting closer and closer, and especially for like peak seasons why should I sell rooms through OTA, right? It's like Comic-Con in San Diego. Why should I have Booking.com and Expedia connected if I can sell directly? And I think that's kind of like always the same question, but it's a tough one because it's like, okay, I don't want to annoy them. I don't want to annoy my market manager. But it's all about level the playing field. So I'm not telling that the OTAs are bad. You just need to level the playing field and make sure you are fair. Obviously, the OTAs, they also need to value, because the more money that the hotels have, you understand, they don't want to strangle the hotel, right? Because they live from the hotels. So I think that's kind of an issue that you need to have in consideration. I have another one. People seems to ignore the front desk when it comes to direct bookings. How do you recommend they help grow revenue? People, let me see if I can get this question. People seem to ignore the front desk when it comes. I'm not sure if you are asking front desk like bookings. Okay. How can the front desk help? Okay, that's a good one. I don't know. There's several examples, and I leave because obviously being from the industry, I've called. I don't know, when I see that the hotel has a better price on the OTA instead of just going and booking through the OTA, I call the hotel and say, hey, I'm looking here at Booking.com, and you have a better price on Booking.com. What should I do? And it's interesting that sometimes hotels, sometimes the front desk tells me, do you know what? We don't control the OTAs. It's a separate whatever company, or it's a separate office. And this is a little bit ridiculous, right? Because they should, and I think that's kind of like, they should control the price, and they should even have the freedom to give a better price than the OTAs to get that direct booking. Do you understand? Because I don't know, sometimes even when I call, they don't even ask what's the period, right? So it could be like $300, $400, $500 of commission, and just by giving back or doing the same price, they can secure that direct booking. I think that's a good one, like securing direct bookings on phone calls. So give the freedom to front desk to give incentives for people to book direct, and I think that could be a good one. Another one is try to understand. So many times reservations flow, and this is technology. Reservations flowing to the PMS, and you don't even know, or you don't see at the screen when you log them in, if the reservation came from Booking.com or Expedia. And I think that's bad, because when the client checks in, it's the perfect moment to try to convert them, right? Try to say, hey, there's a card here next time that you or your friend books, you can use, and there's a discount of 5% or 10% or whatever. So I think hotels are losing that opportunity, and that's related with the front desk. Having at the front desk a card that will give you whatever 5%, that's also a nice one to have. So there's different techniques, and I believe we should bring the front desk to help us conquer the problem, basically. So I think hopefully I had a couple of good tips there. What do you think about loyalty programs? I like them, but I believe you first need to work at the basics. I think for a specific type of hotels, they might work. For instance, there's Stash. There's some interesting programs that they really do. They handpick their selection, and I think that's why I like them. Not so much about the points that you get back, but more about the selection that they do. Personally, I don't like loyalty, so I don't really understand the drivers of loyalty. I know that the US, it's very loyalty based, and if you look at the big groups like the Sheratons and the Hiltons, and they work a lot the loyalty issue, but I think it's not. It's also to learn more about their guests, so they can give a personal experience more than giving points away. Do you understand? And I think that's kind of like some part of the loyalty that we always forget when we see loyalty program, because obviously if it's a loyalty program, you can learn more about your guests, and if you learn more about your guests, you can be more specific about what you offer to them, right? So you can send a birthday card, you can send little touches that will make people's like, okay, this is not normal, receiving a birthday, card from an hotel that I stayed last year. And I think those are the nice touches that you can do with loyalty. Not necessarily the points that you get back, because OTAs are so aggressive that they end up beating the loyalty programs, and I think that creates more a problem than a solution. I have another question here. People are booking off the group block more and more these days. How can we marketing directors prevent? Let me think about this one. People are in. You have to, I need more insights about this question. So people are booking off the group block more and more these days. How can marketing directors prevent this trend for hurting their group sales effort? Okay, so they end up using tools like OTAs and like Booking.com and I think you can win this with technology. And many of the bookings that are done with events and sales are like corporate bookings, and people end up going through the OTA because it's easy. They have their card, everything is organized, and they just click book. And I think you need to win them with technology. And I'll give you an example. So if you have a group sales event. So if you have a specific event that you want to push, you can create, if you have a sophisticated booking engine, you can create a special rate. Okay, and that's kind of like the basic step. So you have a code, you put on the booking engine, and you get that specific rate. Okay, that's the basic that your booking engine should support. But if you want to give an extra step, is you can actually create a deep link into the booking engine that if you click on that link, the code will be already on the booking engine, so you don't need to go and type the code. And normally those are codes that are not necessarily very friendly, so people end up like, this is too much, so they end up, and they're on their mobile or something, so it doesn't really work. So if you have a deep link into your booking engine with that specific promotion or package selected, that will increase obviously the odds of direct booking on a group event sales thing. There's another aspect that it's super important. It's the meeting planner. So if you do business with meeting planners, you can actually empower them with booking engines. And I think this goes back a little bit to the discussion that we had of empowering others with your booking engine. So you can, let's say there's an event, there's an event in San Diego, and there's a bunch of event planners who are kind of like pushing this event. You can create specific offers on your booking engine that will only be seen on the page of the event planner. Do you understand? So they are just do you understand? They are focused on a specific meeting event, a specific package, a specific offer that's just being provided by the event planner. And I think that's also a good point. So you can give technology to event planners so that you can get direct bookings. And I think the beauty of it is that everything is integrated with the same platform. So you don't need necessarily so all the technology, it's there, it's integrated with your PMS, it's integrated with your channel manager. So if you get a booking from the event planner website, eventually it will flow into the PMS. It will tell the OTAs, okay, I have one less room in those specific dates. So it's totally integrated into the technology, and I think that's great. I have another question here. A lot of questions. I'm tired. We are also busy these days. How do you recommend people to manage so many different details in a booking direct campaign? Okay, so I think that's kind of a very interesting question, and I think it touches different things. Okay, and I think the first one, it's we need to be simple, right? So we need to simplify the process and kind of like, again, look at the basics and see, okay, it's more important to take care of my images than sign up for this whatever platform. Do you understand? So try to simplify your technology stack. So try to reduce the number of vendors that you deal with. Try to simplify your website, your booking engine, your offer. I'll give you an example of a client of mine. They have 29 room types. And obviously 29 room types, it's a nightmare to manage. It's a nightmare for us to support her. And I'm almost sure that's a very complicated booking engine to navigate as a guest. Do you understand? So just simplify your offer, simplify your technology stack, reduce the number of vendors. So try to get something that it's that combines multiple technologies. And I think that's kind of like the first step. Okay. The second step, it's I think you need to divide and conquer, right? So we are not, especially being an hotelier, it's super challenging because you need to do different things. You need to talk with the architects because there's a new project coming. You need to talk with the utilities. You need to talk with the people who are in the kitchen. Do you understand? So it's such a complex world that you kind of need to break into simple chunks in order to try to get control of your problem. And I think divide and conquer, it's a term that we use in computer science, that you need to divide a big problem into chunks so you can actually it's easier to solve. Okay, so that's another one. Kind of like I've been working in a new way to solve this problem, and it's based on adapting, so using an adaptive strategy. So the idea is, it would be great to have something to draw, but the idea is that you need to set the goals. So you need to define the goals. Okay, you need to review the goals. Okay, so it's based on review, refine, and adapt. So it's kind of like a cycle. So you need first to create your goals, but then you need to review them, refine them, and adapt them. So it's kind of like a full cycle that you go over and over again. And normally we recommend to do this on a monthly basis, so you can see results. Because in e-commerce, you need some time to look at analytics, right? You need to look at what's going on in terms of the visits of your website. Obviously, different days of the week, they represent, or they give you different data. So you kind of need to wait at least 4 weeks before you can see some results. So we do this. We divide the year in 12 months. Then we create objectives, like yearly objectives, and then we do like monthly objectives, where then we review. We do brainstorms with knowing about the comp set, the guests, the basics of our messaging and everything. We set up monthly goals, and then we review, refine, and adapt those goals. And I think this is a process that enables us to always focus on the major goal. And obviously the major goal in our business, it's to increase direct bookings. And I think that's a nice concept. Obviously you could use different approaches, but I think that's a nice and easy one to get the statistics, look at the statistics, say, okay, it worked well, let's continue, or let's move, or let's refine, and let's adapt. There's something else that we do, but it's a little bit more technical, and it's called A/B testing. And A/B testing, it's kind of like an automated way for you to learn what's working. And a good example on a hotel website, it's like, okay, what's better, a blue button telling book now, or a red button telling book now? No one really knows the answer, right? So we have to do what we call A/B testing. So randomly, based obviously on an algorithm, we show different options to the users, and we keep the results. And based on the conversion ratios, we will know what's better. Do you understand? So we will follow the revenue. So we are always doing that to make sure we optimize not the website. So obviously we need to optimize the website to our brand, but we need to make sure our concept, it's totally aligned with the digital world and with e-commerce. So we do this A/B testing. And a couple of years ago, I was in a conference. I don't remember the numbers, but they were super interesting. That they were studying with A/B testing a change on a form of a flight, of booking a flight, and sometimes the results are amazing. And I think this is exactly what we want to do. And obviously you can even go to I think the color of the button, it's an extreme, but it's a very easy one to do. Okay, I have a couple of questions here. Let me look at this. What about hotels partnering with CVBs? Should an adapt strategy aim to bring partners? I think knowing people who are bringing tourists into your region, it's always a great idea, right? So it's again knowing the guests, knowing your market, knowing your comp set, knowing your region, knowing your city. So I think this is a great idea. And obviously the more active that you are, the more credit people will give you. So the more things that you will do. And obviously the CVBs, they do a ton of events, and they're always trying to be ahead. And obviously they have a ton of money to do research. And sometimes they spend so much money and advertisement in videos, in photography. I don't know. There's so many things that they do that they are totally free for you to use, that I think it's a great idea to partner with them and bring their good work into your website. And I think that's great. And obviously they know, and if they are investing a lot of money on very, very high-end analytics, and sometimes they pay airlines to understand the traffics and everything, they should, or you should, learn about them. And it's interesting that many are free, and I don't see a lot of hotels taking advantage of that. So I think that's a good one. I've worked with CVBs, yes. I worked with Visit Palm Springs. I worked with some CVBs. It's kind of like I think that there's a challenge, and the challenge is to explain. And I think this question. So, if you work with CVBs, how do you help their hotels get direct bookings? Okay, so we've done some interesting work with CVBs. Most of the CVBs allow you to do bookings through their website. 90% of the time they are cheaper than Booking.com or Expedia or other OTAs, okay, because they are somehow sponsored, okay. But hotels, they don't have the time to optimize those channels, and I think that's kind of like a niche channel, unfortunately, because it's much better. And I have a good example in Palm Springs, where we worked with Palm Springs, with Visit Palm Springs, and we put booking engines on Visit Palm Springs that were tied with the hotel. But because specifically Palm Springs, they have so many little hotels, they didn't have the time to go and optimize the booking engine at the CVB. Do you understand? So you will end up like the hotels, they didn't give priority to that project, so it ended up not giving a ton of bookings. So I think hotels are, and if you look, sometimes it's interesting to see that sometimes hotels complain about what Expedia and Booking.com are doing, but sometimes you should blame a little bit the hotels, because they don't really, when they see a good opportunity like the CVB, sometimes they don't work that opportunity. And obviously sometimes the technology doesn't integrate, and that creates also a challenge. Okay, I have another one here. Expedia says that they have new direct booking tools such as revenue management tools, etc. Should hotels be wary of investing even more on the OTA's platform than their own websites? I think it's I think I like, to tell the truth, I like the Expedia strategy. I don't like Booking.com strategy, but I like the Expedia strategy. Obviously, if you look at the big picture, they both want to control the customer. But what, for instance, Booking.com is doing, they are buying different companies in the chain. Like they bought like a website solution, they bought a booking engine solution, they even bought a PMS, because they want to control the hotel A to Z. Do you understand? And I think that's not right, because they want to own the hotel from A to Z. So they are not going, they are trying to kind of, they are not giving the freedom to the hotel to choose. Do you understand? So I see a lot of hotels, especially in countries where the economy is not going so well, and they take advantage of them. So they use the full Booking.com stack, okay? And obviously it reduces their freedom, and obviously it increases the control of Booking.com, okay? So I don't like that strategy, because it's not fair. What Expedia is doing, so they are trying to become a technology partner. So so instead of being just an OTA, right, an online travel agency, they are telling, okay, we see so much data. They are trying, they are giving or creating value for you to spend more time on their extranet. So you take advantage of their specific offers or their corporate whatever tools. Do you understand? So I think that's a much nicer way of doing it. So in a way, obviously they want to control you, but they are bringing value. They don't want to control you from A to Z. So I like their strategy, and I think if you know your tools, you can take advantage, and you can look at their tools to increase your knowledge about your product. To that point, I have another one here. Many questions. To that point, would you say that some OTAs are competitors or leaders? I think it's kind of. I think it depends where you are. Do you understand? Because obviously you cannot just put all the hotels in the same basket. Okay, so you have hotels who are super sophisticated on their marketing or on their digital marketing, and you have hotels who they don't have a clue of what they are doing. They are great hoteliers, but they don't have a clue of what they are doing. So sometimes, so if you are kind of like super sophisticated, then you should look at them as competitors. But you sometimes you really need their help to conquer the market. So it's kind of like a very open question there. So it really depends on where you are. But I really believe that they do a good job, or they have been doing a good job. So I think you should look at where the reservations are coming from and trying to level the playing field. So it's a fair market. Obviously, we know that they are huge companies, so it's very tough to compete with them. But we want to balance and level the playing field as much as we can, so we don't feel completely dependent, because we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, or if they are going to change their policy or increase their percentage in 1%, and that could have a huge impact in the hotel, whatever strategy, or even the revenue of the hotel. Okay. 53 minutes. I'm closing the gap. So there's a lot to talk here. So I think and being able to talk 1 hour about this shows that there's so much complexity. So I'm kind of like go back to the first question, or the first challenge. It's like, okay, go back to the basics and work on your brand, make sure you have a good brand, make sure you have good technology. And if you have that base, then you can start exploring other things to increase your direct exposure and direct bookings. So I don't know, maybe it's my conclusion. I don't know if you have any more questions. Jeremiah, I don't know if you are there. Do you have any more questions for me? Do you want to conclude?
I guess we can wrap things up. Let me get back on camera here. All right. Yeah, I guess we can wrap things up. I know I've learned a lot. It's every time I get a chance to talk with somebody like Filipe that has been around this his whole life, it's always an eye-opening experience. You know, I really love that you've taken the time to talk with us, that you take the time to work with hotels, and even though you're a technology solution, you're actually advocating for getting back to basics, simplifying, getting rid of unnecessary things. I think that's a really, really good point.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Excellent. Well, let me just check to see if there's any questions before we sign off. No, it looks good. Okay, if you're watching this replay, you can still ask questions. The system is set up so that it will send us the question, and we can keep the conversation going, because that's what this is. It's a conversation. It's an open thing, and it's a developing thing. Just like Filipe was saying, we don't know if the rates, if two companies decide to consolidate and suddenly the entire OTA landscape changes, or your nearest competitor consolidates as well. That can change everything. So it's a constantly changing, constantly evolving.
Talking about that, sorry, I don't want to interrupt.
Go for it.
But I have an interesting story. So I have a client, and they have a small hotel in in Maine.
Mhm.
It's called, it's very close to the ocean, beautiful property, and they only have limited number of rooms. They have around 20 or 30 rooms. I'm not sure. So it's kind of like a smaller hotel. And the biggest hotel in town, okay, they are going through renovations. So they decrease their rate dramatically. Do you understand?
Mm.
And that has an impact, immediate impact on their monthly revenue. Do you understand? So it's like you need to be prepared for these things. So you need to learn about your competitive. You need to, again, it's kind of like, okay, how can I tap into my guests so I can make sure, like, someone decreasing the price just because they are going through renovations would not affect my business. You understand? And now she's struggling because obviously Maine in the winter, it's a tough location. Summer, it's beautiful. Everyone is fully booked, but winter, it's tough. And now she's struggling because she's kind of like looking into a very difficult couple of 6 months. Obviously, she told me, oh, but you know what? They are almost concluded with renovations, so they will go back to their price point. You understand? But you need to control all the
management. They could do a lot of different stuff that's going to directly affect her. I think that's the thing, is that the consumer is so much more informed now than they were even 5 years ago, right?
Correct.
You mentioned that 26 touch points. You know, people will do research, just like the Japanese. The Japanese consumer will do a ton of research before making a move. So if you are not as knowledgeable of your comp set as your consumer, well, then you're at a definite disadvantage, right?
Okay.
So it's an ongoing conversation. That's all I'm trying to drive at. But really, again, thank you so much for your time, Filipe. Really appreciate all your work, all your insights. Thank you for everybody's questions today, and we appreciate seeing you on. We'll see you next time, okay?
Thank you. Bye.
Okay. Bye now. Have a good one.